I got it. I had to make a voice. Okay, Barry, so we'll see how it goes. Oh wait, I gotta change the voice. No spoilers. She breaks the cards in half. And they go, oh, I forgot I had Mr. Limerick. Alright. Oh well. Yeah. There's the name. It's a spoiler. Alright, we begin.
Sackcloth and Ashes, a game for any console and device. Wield great enmity towards your fellow people and ascribe to God because the rage did indeed dissociate you from the words you've been dying to say for years. Animate everyone around you with on the spot breaking prophecy influenced by the Lord and historical observation. To everything, there is a season.
Whoa.
So turn, baby, turn. Nothing new under the sun.
This is a very loud voice.
Attempt to blot out the sun with your words and find the folly in everything. You've already been to you, and you don't even accept your calling. So shake the dust out of your device and ponder the million tests of conscience that it takes to increase your power and absurd imagery. Sackcloth and Ashes, sponsored by cannabis, fermented sponge like crispy juice and Asherah will get us into trouble every other generation. Choose your name. She who bites the crab's egg. Sackcloth and Ashes, the game for any console and device. Wield great enmity towards your fellow people and ascribe to God because the rage did indeed dissociate you from the words you've been dying to say for years. Alienate everyone around you with on the spot breaking prophecy influenced by the Lord and historical observation. To everything, there is a season, so turn, baby, turn. Nothing new under the sun. Attempt to blot out the sun with your words and find the folly in everything. You've already been to you, and you don't even accept your calling. So shake the dust out of your device and ponder the million tests of conscience that it takes to increase your power and absurd imagery. Sackcloth and Ashes, sponsored by cannabis, fermented sponge night, respite juice, and Asherah who gets us into trouble every other generation. Choose your name. She who bites the crabs in half for Shazam. Choose a quest. Defeat your comrades lost. Have to travel the lands to retrieve your quest. Go directly to a battle, otherwise avoid it as much as possible and continue until you find the next objective or end of level. If you want, you may travel to another level right away and begin your quest over from there. Wield great enmity towards your fellow people, ascribe it to God. If your anger does not exceed your passion for your God and religion, it is nothing more than an imitation. If you ever found yourself thinking, I'd do anything for God, I really would, the angels said you could become a soldier or a pastor or a missionary or any kind.
Brace yourself.
But wait! You haven't chosen a god yet. Which god will you be prophesying for? Dominion, Beer, Trinity, districts too. Alongside a boardwalk in 150, the four friends came from all over the world. Moscow, Osaka, Sydney, and Baltimore. Some called them a rock band. They were talented and extremely popular, at least until the band started.
Alright, I'm gonna see if I can tone it down a little. My first time I've ever had to go this far down. Alright, here we go.
Performing songs that were their own and not from the school band acrobats. Their new songs were often satanic and sometimes used violent imagery to teach lessons in free speech and freedom of religion. As they kept on gaining in popularity and fanbase, however, things began to fall apart, and the band members went in opposite directions, each turning out solo projects. Some people liked this approach because it wasn't a vibe, but it left an old sense of emptiness. Most people didn't seem to really care who had actually composed the song, only that the musicians were still famous enough that it was cool to like them. The first to leave the band was one of their frontman's friends and also their youngest member. They'd been with the band the longest. The band's name was BOAZ. BOAZ capitalized for no real reason, because if you spelled it without the capital letter, it could have been a threat. B is for Babylon. It's also a double meaning that fits right into what the band was doing and represented. A stands for Anak. The Z stands for, you guessed it, the Zodiac. The B represents the best and the worst in humanity at the same time. It stands for the blackness and the brightness. This makes for the band's symbol as well as the meaning behind the title they adopted in their solo acts. It was a sort of reward for having read the lyrics in order. A reward you would mainly want because you would never need it again. A reward you'd probably get if you actually turned into a beast or monster and ripped the living souls from the living bodies of all your enemies and pets. We must what the beast inside all of us wanted. All our worldly belongings. This was how it began, this was how it stayed, and this was how it will be. Our whole life is just bees and days. A bunch of us from the school were drinking in my dorm room last night. This new kid showed up. Some local punk kid we hadn't even bothered to meet yet. And I guess we all went on a big drunk rampage with the new kid in it, because the kid looked kind of. I like to keep it quiet from the dorm counselors and everyone else that my family bought the building and was supposed to. I was surprised when he woke up in the morning, wondering why his bed was upside down, why his books and wallet and laptop and everything else had all scattered out everywhere in a circle that made a sort of rainbow spiraling with his name in the middle of it. All the while our names all over our walls in falls with their dicks attached to them, which had us laughing really hard. started fast, but then got so goddamn ugly that we stopped for a while, but not too long. Then we broke some bottles over his head, not a beer. One of the expensive whiskey bottles he bought from the mini-mart with his dad's credit card. Living at themselves. My wildest wasn't entirely true. I also like to keep the fact that we didn't like the pocket at all and couldn't stand him ever since he came to the school a week before my freshman year and said hi right away before everyone else, so everyone knew how much we hated his guts, and even the second he showed up they wanted to tear the prick apart. I hadn't wanted him to hear my dad's voice the way he was all apologetic on the phone that I hadn't done well in any of my classes this quarter. Dad was pretty happy. His two younger children with no plans of joining a band in his eyes, as long as he could stay in school. Now that our time's run out, here are some more facts for you. Like how the new kid in our midst and his friends actually liked it when their stuff was tossed up around. A few things even ended up under their beds. How these 5 total strangers never saw a damn thing and were probably the biggest partiers of the 4. Me too. So this might just be a fairy tale. And here's a start. Even if you didn't, and believe me, I didn't know. We have all the rage we want for the rest of our lives. You were looking forward to what we've always wanted and would keep dreaming about. Let it slip away and set aside as you danced away the song suggests we do. When you find it in time, the change will already come. To see you crawl out of a pit, an opening in a rock face you could crawl back into at any time. Heard your song for years. If it's time and we know the words, then you might as well let us be the only ones that know them. We're always thinking it, got it into every situation in all of the known places of the past. Somehow the 5 of us hated it. In the second song they went from throwing each other off our beds into something really nice for all 5 of them. A total group experience where we'd go around one by one and fuck the pulpit, throw his ass down to the ground on the other bed. He couldn't really keep his feet. But it'd be different if you would be someone different for us all in bed.
Okay. Oh wait, there's still the.
Put up the fight and just sat on the floor, Grandpa.
Remember one. Phew. Saved. Can't go down the road. I wonder.
All the 5 of us guys had only a few rules to remember for our total experience of getting drunk with someone else's property. Rule 1 was that there wouldn't be a repeat of last time. And that would include my throwing the kid down again and him probably thinking we didn't have our stories straight. The other rules. Everyone must feel in their minds they've changed places in some sort of reality that might actually happen when all we're just trying to forget. The truth is that our worldly possessions are pretty lame compared to whatever a band could actually have and put behind itself. It would all change wicked. He'd become a group of his own that no one knew about. Then later, they never turned up in any of our songs ever again, which was fine. For all of us in the band, we lived those songs until one day the war finally stopped. It wasn't too bad a place to be. No, the blackness, that was just your own room. Oh yeah, Rosie was making stuff. So let us have it as the four of us held this new kid down in bed. A piece of furniture, I guess, the kid had bought from his own dad who didn't really know about it. We found by mistake and it ripped apart all around to see. It wasn't easy holding the new guy down as he threw up in my lap, but there I was trying not to stare as we ripped his books and clothes off of him.
Oh.
And we locked ourselves inside the bathroom. For us, this would be one more battle to get him out of here. In my book, A Much Better Revenge for Dave, and shitting our guts out in the stalls as everyone walked by. The little ones' curses, they love their life the way you could. And it was that night I realized my God is opposite. The spirit that descends on me are gathered in behold. Bless me. That's why I have a 2,000-page excites about what the letters in BOAZ stands for. And in fact, it is 16. While this kid is unconscious, I shall read to you all from the pages of my excites. B4, birth, of course. You could even think about an upside-down bottle as it rises over our heads and what it stands for when we become monsters. We're gonna find a way to live happily in the midst of an upside-down world. A black sky to show the whole wide world, the sea below to let us feel at home. That is the great divide of human experience between blackness and brightness, and impenetrable darkness or inviolable light. In fact, think of a person. To be alive is to be surrounded by darkness. No light can ever penetrate us. All we can know of another soul is through its darkness and brightness. It's impossible for a person to live without one of them ever entering the other's body. Even death, when it comes to the end, will completely turn away. In order to reach heaven, we have to break through all the darkness, that which stands between us. even more to the point is this. If one doesn't go through the light, through that same great divide, he might live to be 100 years old. Even for a devil or demon to keep one from rising up, and so be is also an all-inclusive world. Birth and the light are two of the three stages of the human life. But it can never be said how we end up, because when the light leaps and a person goes under, be is still what rises up with us in the guise of new life to go forward from the other side in our life after life until death. A curse or gift, it can never be told. It might seem as if there were light, but in fact you won't reach heaven unless you've broken through all the darkness of the land. This darkness for this curse we carry and take with us. But in our turn, our own journey to death as we move away from light, there will be that dark space that you never return to after having been illuminated. For you all may continue through darkness toward death, or else you will die forever. In other words, if you stay within the blackness forever, then the darkness is complete within you. The great divide itself, and no one or nothing can get to your heart to change the way things have been. Only our actions can bring something different for others, not the light, but rather the dark which will cause the lights to rise, as they try to complete what we have failed in our final attempt to close this dark void or wound which our presence leaves within them. Since in this dark void within them might only end up affecting someone else in that it could bring light, which means and in the midst of this be a world without the darkness. So my fellow monster, no matter how bad the places surround you, if you just stick by me. Bottles! Always with us. I wanna stay like a ghost, so it's better not to leave this shitty place no matter what. Get out of me and don't do what I did. Get out, damn it. You must not give in. I see the face of death, and excuse me to tell me this. What if everyone does this? If a man would not fear to meet himself, that would be true salvation for this man. The answer for every problem the universe throws at me. So I would gladly return to Death's Gate. Or would you be so kind and lend me a match? I would set fire to all that is dark in order to turn this world from night back into day. With an angry look on my face like I am burning down this whole place of blackness for your sake, so the light can return once more. I would follow your soul as we were before that life before our birth. We were so dark we hid in the corner, even though our fathers loved us so much, and their fathers before them. First, I watch your mother sobbing on my knee while we fuck so sorely that you won't turn away. It's me who feels our mother's tears, for I will do nothing to take them away.
It was metaphorical. It was all metaphorical.
The grief she bears. For all this waiting around for that moment we're too afraid to actually find out that we can go no higher than the woods. When you don't return home, you get in our faces to try to show you a more. As if our own experience hadn't taken place at the end of all possible time. The only people left behind would be people like my grandfather, who were born dead, no longer of our family, or all of those children that have yet to be born, whose destiny was sealed on this day the nightmares of love were first revealed to the eyes. This would be the curse that came after our blessing, before we got up the courage to actually speak up about anything, or at least not lose faith. When it's true to you that when a man turns from this path, he can become like the dead kid. Don't have emotions, folks. What can a band of brothers say to you on behalf of life that is as confused and baffling as a true image? Yourselves have already left, not in a simple and good way, but in a complicated way that leaves one lost on this land without a true sense of purpose, that leads you to make this difficult decision. Yes, don't have the kid, please. We will go with you any way you decide. No one would rather you do what I have done in my life except me, myself, not in that order. You must understand, for those who stay, will never find this dark world in the midst of what has happened to us, that the same can be true. Someone, please give me an explanation and a reason why I might die. If I continue to exist as if the last 300 and some nights or at least 10,000 days have yet to happen in a reality that might be bigger than life, but wait for my death in the meantime to try to change everything. Maybe not a way, but a true image of love. Maybe that will make the difference. That might be a chance, though, so that I don't come across as insane. Don't talk to me anymore. I want to go with you when you make the final journey away from these lights to where the darkness never dies away. The very idea is unheard of. Oh no! Let's go look for this little guy in bed to keep us out of the room so he can take his chances. Congratulations, you have completed your first prophecy. Experience and golden skill points gained. Human tongue inaccessibility and mythic translator use. 18%. Congratulations, you have reached civilization. There was a part in a second book where the three who remained gathered with some sort of shaman. It wasn't entirely clear, but I assumed they'd already started on their quest for true illumination and self-realization, or they might just be working out how best to spend their time remaining. BAD in all that reading was make something better before you end. This was also part of a special summer program called BOAZ. The wages of the work and how it can be earned, where there is the teacher who reminds us not to come back and learn until he says it's alright. He doesn't know it, but he reminds us with everything that's done. We just never got it done. We'll get it done, and all we must do is sit back and be in awe of what he can teach us with his gentle guidance, along with the endless practice and exercising, being alive and growing and making the right and wise choices, and his skills shine through and help us all make it. That is the one thing we have to always remind ourselves. For what he can teach us will only bring about the next great divide, the final death and resurrection. He himself cannot stop until then, nor does he even understand his own nature. Only after we are prepared can we try to take the step, the tech one at a time, so one can move forward until the inevitable fall. And it would have to be more than just a simple fall, because that is the sign they must remember if they choose to make it with you. For at one moment it will take a leap that no man should ever ask or attempt for this great gift to bring you all down, and we would give it. His last story would be that same boy who was only happy about the days not to be found in this history book, but happy about that kind of smile.
That was a road. That's a very volatile voice. Set it to 20 and was still peaking. That would have blown out all of your eardrums. And it happens like very sycophantic, very obsequious, seemingly. Wow. That's a very expensive, very expensive cognac that you only have once a year. That you only bring out once a year. I'm gonna cleanse the palate. I'm gonna bring the Limerick man, Mr. Limerick, with us today. Hold on. Let me set him up. With another Sackcloth and Ashes. Let's do another Sackcloth and Ashes. She bites the crabs in half. Sure thing. Oh, whoa, Mr. Limerick. Forgot Mr. Limerick. Yeah, I do not want... Ugh. Mr. Limerick. Okay. Have yourself a pee. Urinate a bit. Light some candles. Quote unquote. Alrighty. Let's do it.
Sackcloth and Ashes, the game for any console and device. Wield great enmity towards your fellow people and ascribe it to God, because the rage did indeed dissociate you from the words you've been dying to say for years. Alienate everyone around you with on-the-spot breaking prophecy influenced by the Lord and historical observation. To everything there is a season, so turn, baby, turn. Nothing new under the sun. Attempt to blot out the sun with your words and find the folly in everything. You've already been to you, and you don't even accept your calling, so shake the dust out of your device and ponder the million tests of conscience that it takes to increase your power and absurd imagery. Sackcloth and Ashes, sponsored by cannabis, fermented sponge mag respite juice, and Ashra, who gets us into trouble every other generation. Choose your name, Mr. Lazarus Q. Limerick, who speaks in epic poems measured in Limerick, Mishumer prose. Go get you some time, and ribaldry limes. Let's see what smells of a rose. Prognosis, flashily love, the backfire of an engagement. You and your best friend from school. There can only be one. How they lied and plotted, even after all the best of friends knew each other the most they'd ever shared, even the worst of enemies. And since that was the truth you always believe, do you really believe your mind can make you feel like anything that could take your pain away, to put an end to your grief for a lifetime? And though that time, like you were running from your brother in the hall and down the hallway, and as if a person who was waiting for you was the enemy in disguise, for he's a much different person now, like me, in that sense. Choose your God, for whom you will be prophesying. Mr. Bones from the Flintstones, or the Man-Thing, a walking carcass, where life and death are all one. Beseech all people of good heart, all people of good heart, and though they did not believe in the possibility of goodness or truth of a free society, or should they be deemed incapable, for even now your forefathers have had the vision in the skies, so raise your voice in song while they cast you out. Raise your voices as you make a small cross and go off and follow him who is like unto you as you but become of their company. In this final war, you must have the words you need to hand for me the truth, and I won't stop. All I ask of you is that you'd understand I don't want this power of mine for no good reason. This burden, Mr. Grief, with a proclivity towards death, the real time of real life, and this was it all. Everything he was thinking in a second, and a bit less time in real world was spent doing something to fix this issue, because nothing lasts. In an ever-growing hole in his heart that grew day after day, the ultimate apocalypse was really apathetic in every sense of the word, and nothing really happened unless he spoke. Words for this, but nothing will help except action. That's what we are. And these are your choices. Choose. Choose. There is no one thing that will have any effect whatsoever. These choices were never about words as such. They're about the mind of the individual. You are the thing and nothing more. To take all of this with no substance of one's own will end up being as useless as those who thought their power came from faith in this church, and as this little fella on the carpet of the living room. This thing called hope. hoping in vain for something so vast and distant that they forgot what was once considered true. It's time for something on the other side, the Bible, that you might find yourself, who must one call when death is gone, and with the bullhorn for the one to call to heaven, those with whom you do not choose to deal or die. And if there is to be a way out of this dead end, when can you trust yourself and tell your voice what it can and what it should, or better not, should never keep you from thinking better about it? Pray the prayer and praise the prayers. You must worship God alone in all his forms. He who created life in every one of his own designs, which means all men are your brothers in their own lives. You can no more forsake life than God could ever forsake himself for his own son. You are not separate. This is not some gilded tower trap of an idea. This is truth, and so, a voice crying in the desert. Only a soul who will die and learn it as a kind of disease with no promise in your afterlife. And to love or leave that little lad inside. This is your greatest victory, as this was. And your child, the dating game, for only the baccalaureate, or someone in their own sex. Only there can only be one, your greatest fear, not one of this world's foolish illusions, is that he could change so very suddenly, as if you saw your brother walking by in a grocery store. As you walk in from the sun, a bright white flash with one red spot, then gone with your soul when it fell down your open gullet that could no longer wait. So your heart sank, and you sat at the dinner table alone, wondering and imagining about his little voice when there wasn't one. You might never hear or smell his perfume that came up through the kitchen on your clothes. This is just one of those things you wish to wake up from this nightmare and say, no, because if it's like that, it is what it is, and life will do it every time. If not, you awake from your slumber in that moment, that exact second, was your life ending. To think that you are important, not realizing that you're an entirely replaceable person, an expendable object in all sense. So the things we lose, when the one before you was really nothing. That moment was a terrible lie, because what good does that bring you to if they're nothing in the end? There must be something left over that's worthwhile. Now in my history there's more, and it will always be this way. Only the gods themselves understand what that is. So pray to him who says no and for whom there is no truth. And I never see those colors anyway, so the red isn't a surprise. Nor the blue or yellow for that matter. If I had the strength to even pray, if there are so many words here, this world was not only given the name Adam and Eve to punish for all the misery there was. I would pray that the lie wouldn't come for me or the boy I was. Nor this one or another here, just someone I can hold. How can the good people die? For those who never chose, who were as were, those who belong to us, and we can never die. Dance all around a small cross in an open field, for they say this is how we spread his message. They don't realize his name was once called another, not his own, and the apple does not fall too far from the tree, though not a single one will ever learn about it until he knows. Even in his dreams, when it seems the truth comes into it with no remorse in his heart, but knowing how this will be, as this happened. For all his words must lead back to him, because there are no lies in a free world that you can know with conviction, but no, you could die any time. And yes, there will always be an end, and for good or for worse. Just take one day and wake up. But isn't that what he can teach me to do in one simple sentence? We're in that world.
Hold on. Let me just cut and paste.
Congratulations, you have completed your first prophecy. Experience and golden skill points gained. Level +5. Or upgrade the skills point of any current level for any task by 3,000,000. In conclusion, this game will end. I think it's an ill-timed end that means your character never truly learns a lesson in life, even if he knows how you should do things in a second. Well, they never will, until he comes back as me. If ever he could change something, anything, why wouldn't he? And with the exception of every human who walked the earth before you, God or nothing, take what is given or leave it in its box or pretend it didn't even come up. And there it is, right next to that. Not matter if you could find a place to hide, where it might take some time for us to take. He cannot deny what is and won't, because what we think he cannot never stop us. In all his wisdom, there has to be an answer. What you'll say to your son or daughter as they don't seem to fit the mold, but is he any different from them? They want you to see that all we ever dreamed would be good, real, only the end. This is a perfect example of how something could go awry because it can't. He had a life where we would learn together. The way life is supposed to be for our time to live. When we knew the things we couldn't see with eyes closed. What is that thing when all our knowledge could become too great and that makes it meaningless? What is your character of reality, for there was none for them? If he was, would the first one care to share? Who will protect them from themselves or to grow into some form of being, instead of dying while you try and imagine that it is nothing? Like what's your real life version of his head so they can make his new one better and see who you can and could ever be in now or now. There is the moment you breathe in his final air before you open your mouth to exhale it. Congratulations! First sight prophecy completed. Experience / gold / skill points gained. Level +3. In conclusion, a few words, the same that could only ever have meaning, and that makes everything of us here. How it has become. Here. Anyone. Then the lesson of the first word ever heard in all our histories from God is given. Only I know. Who cares for nothing until there's nothing to see? Who's there in every room or church in your history? You couldn't wait, and your tears will only wash you clean until the first time you believe God exists is only in a place and not 1 in 100,000 lives with it is ever right. Now you must try to find someone who isn't, because this is all anyone will ever learn.
And we're under an hour. Okay, that's good enough. I don't want to have a chain of side prophecies. That would go a long while. And when you're on a high point, good night.